Imagine this. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your feelings. This is your house. But is it your home? Hi, I'm Nelson DeMello, and join me as we try to find our home beyond our borders.
I don't know. I think that's fine.
Yeah, that's a good take.
Yeah, I'm feeling a type of way today. I guess the people pleasing in me, hates it when I disappoint people in my life, especially. And I don't know, marriage is hard, and there's a balance you got to learn about standing on business, when to stand down, take their side, and I don't say that in the sense that I always stand on business and have to take an L. I feel like I usually take the L, and it's hard for me to stand on business. And so when I do stand on business and people react certain ways, that, affects me. I did want to talk about, though, I wanted to talk about, a question for you. Do you think your life is tailored to you? This is just a question that I was thinking about as I reflect on, all my my testimony in its entirety, and thinking about, I know people have lived worse lives. People have lived more complicated lives, more traumatic lives, all that. But if I lived those lives, I wouldn't be me right now. And I wonder if I would be them, if I lived your life from birth to present time, would I not just become you? Am I interchangeable in terms of being? I don't know, because it's not like anyone who was born the day that I was to my parents to, that wouldn't have become me, because me that perceives things is its own thing. I know that, that's, what are you doing? Well, for me, it's 9 a.m. It's like, what are you talking about? But I don't know. I guess one thing is, suffering, right? In general, is it not tailored to us specifically? Which sounds awful, I think, if you think about other people suffering, but I think that's a savior complex. Don't think about other people suffering when you're thinking about the problem of suffering. I think really you can only answer the question for yourself. You can't answer it for other people, because their skin is calloused to the suffering that they go through, and they will grow and they will adapt to that in ways that maybe you couldn't. And that's why you haven't gone through that and won't go through that, Yeah, in a general sense, there's a passage, I think in Ezekiel or Isaiah, it says that God does the evil and does the good. And you're like, what the heck? But if you think about a loving God who could have curated your life, if that's the line of thinking you think of, then, verses that say no temptation is too much for man, right? And he will always provide an escape. And when you think about just how careful he would have written that story, you stand to think, and that they take care of you. I bring all this up really, is that a validation of my life? Okay, I know it's not that bad, but it affected me the way that it did, so you have to validate it. That's funny. I wonder if philosophers analyze the emotional side of why they start thinking about certain things, right? Like I just did. That's a perfect example. I'm thinking about suffering and how that's tailored to a singular person and this and that, and then really all I'm asking is am I validated for what I've gone through, and is that okay? which is, I think like every philosopher is doing that, is reaching for some emotional thing, answering it purely logical. But that's its own side thing, I guess. Okay, we have brought in the setting of what we're talking about. I wanted to talk about going back kind of holistically and more like in my purpose. I think we all search for meaning and purpose, some more than others. I think some people are okay with like, yeah, purpose in life is to be happy with family and like be honest in your work, like have a good job, have a good family, and live life. Like that's good. And I think honestly, there's a lot of wisdom to that, because I think the people who tried to find the granular of like what was I made for and da da da, eventually they will get to that. But it's this like, instead of starting like, okay, this is the main idea, and then everything will figure itself out. It's them from the bottom trying to put all these pieces together. And once they have that piece all together, and then they realize, oh, what makes me happy is a job that's fulfilling, and like work that is fulfilling, not a job necessarily. It could be like a hobby that's fulfilling, or, your volunteer hours, where, whatever, like your side stuff, not just the main stuff, but your work life is fulfilling. And then you have family and loved ones around you that support you, that understand you, that know you, that care for you. And that becomes the goal, right? So in that, let's see, as soon as early as I could dream about wanting, like a career, a job, or like a dream job, I think I was a little late in the game, bro. I think, I mean, kind of going back, I think I'm just like delayed, right? I was like 14 when I've always kind of played soccer. It was fun and this and that, but it was in high school, freshman year, that I played. I saw people, I think what it was is that I always played for these, like, what do you call it? Like rec leagues, like very, not serious. And I was always kind of better than everyone. And I was like, oh, okay, well, if everyone's going to treat soccer like this, like, whatever. But then I played with people that actually cared, and it was just like a different world. I keep going back. Like, it felt like an anime, like, I don't know. Like, I think Naruto has the same thing, like during the Chunin exams, or My Hero Academia, he gets into the school and he sees all these superpowers, and just like that thing of like, whoa, it's a different world in here competitively. It's just like there's this drive, and that, yeah, now I'm thinking about like every high schooler that wants to go pro, like every high school athlete that wants to go pro, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know if that's what you want, man. But a guy can dream, I guess. I don't know, dude. It's not, we'll get there. So yeah, I just, from there, it was training 3 times a day. Like, I remember I would wake up early from school to go to the gym, and then we had a soccer class. So we would work out, play soccer, whatever the case was. And then after school, I would work on fundamentals at home. Like, I would be juggling. I'd be, doing this exercise where it's basically like a volley off the wall, and you get 1 touch or 2 touch, like whatever you want to do to challenge yourself. Anyways, but I was just working on fundamentals, dribbling and all that. And I did that pretty much for 3 years. I mean, there's injuries in between that took me out for months, and that did not work, man. And during this time, I remember if I had a bad day of practice, I thought God was punishing me for something that I did. And I guess this ties into the first thing I was talking about with people pleasing. Like, and I've talked about, like, I wasn't just a people pleaser, but I was a God pleaser too. And so what that means, like, that sounds like, oh yeah, everyone should be a God pleaser. But being a people pleaser, a God pleaser, you're tying your worth to their pleasure. And that means that there's a fear that they won't take pleasure in you. this is destructive, bar none. There's never a good reason, a good this is manipulative, this is manipulated, this is just not healthy, this is not good. Being a God pleaser is not a good thing, because you cannot fear that he is not pleased with you, because it has nothing to do with you, right? It has to do with what Jesus did. And he, as we talked about a few weeks ago, he was perfected in his mission. He finished the job. We don't have to do anything else, right? We don't have to add to his work. His work is complete. It is perfect. That is what complete means, or that is what perfect means. It is complete, full. Nothing needs to be added. Nothing needs to be subtracted. It is perfect. So I was a God pleaser, and I would have that back and forth. If I had a good practice, I was thinking, wow, God loves me. Wow, dude, that's great. And if I had a bad practice or a bad game or whatever, I'm like, what did I do wrong throughout the week that made me feel this way? I had no one really to talk about with this. And maybe there were, and that's the thing. It's like a perception thing, right? There might have been somebody who was willing to listen. I mean, even now to this day, I feel like there's a few people that I can confide in, and it's not out of wisdom that I pick these few. I mean, maybe it is. I don't know. And that's the thing. Even to this day, I don't know, because I can look at a few people of hey, I technically can talk to these people about these doubts and whatever. But will they give me an answer? I would have to first be vulnerable with them. And I guess, if that's my whole calling card of I don't care who I'm vulnerable with, then, whatever the case, whatever. But in being vulnerable and them giving advice, there's power in that, right? There's influence that I'm giving them the power to be influential in my life. And if they steer me in the wrong direction, that is painful. That'll lead to bad things. I want to start a series talking about how to basically use the gifts of the Spirit, and I don't know how to name it, but when it comes to prophecy, teaching, these things I don't think are fleshed out enough. You would think after 2,000 years of theology, you would think that this would be something that's fleshed out, and it doesn't seem to be. A lot of the theology that I see around that stuff is very I don't want to say archaic, elementary, this is good and this is bad, and everything goes down this framework. There is zero nuance, and I don't think that helps with answers. If there's good and bad, then what about the good? What I mean by good and bad, prophecy, for example, anything that's divination is bad. Even though, which is crazy, right? All the divination examples in the New Testament, right? Divination is basically prophecy without the Holy Spirit. So without it's a bad guy doing the prophecy, basically. If the bad guys are doing prophecies, but their prophecies are true, they're bad because they're deceptive in some kind of way, which anyway, I'm sorry that this isn't what we're talking about, but I'll get there eventually. And I don't want to leave you hanging. Sorry. So essentially it's just my theory right now, at least, is that it's being done without authority, without God's authority, without God's plan and provision for their lives, without love, essentially. And so if you're doing that, and that's why, right, that means any prophet of God can do no wrong, except they can do wrong, and they do a lot of wrong because of this thing of it's Matthew 7:22, where it says I don't know you, those who prophesy and heal in my name, I'll say I never knew you, because you guys are workers of lawlessness, meaning you're not doing it in my permission. You're using my authority and you're using my power outside of my authority. So that's not cool. And so there's like a nuance there that overlaps the good and bad of out of obedience, like outside of obedience. I don't know what I was talking about before. Anyways, that's like the complete thought. I'll get into it later. But influence, right? I don't want to, and I've just been burned by that a lot, right? Even going sometimes, to my dad, sometimes it's fired by, sometimes it's just like, that didn't help. Or I think very rarely, because usually his answer will be, I don't know, as opposed to giving me something bad. But I've had friends in my life and people in my life that had given me advice that just puts me in a curveball position. Anyways. Okay, so I just trained so hard, and I thought this was my purpose. I thought I existed to bring glory to God through soccer. I thought I was gonna be the next Kaká, if anyone knew who knows who that is. But essentially, what is that? Oh my gosh. Bro, okay, yeah. So I was, I thought I was going to, celebrate, take off my shirt and have the shirt under that says like Jesus loves you, or Tim Tebow, I think his name is, John 3:16 on the cheek or whatever, like that kind of thing. And then I remember I was in a business class and I made a business proposal, and I was like, I'm going to hold on to this, which was basically building orphanages in India and China and stuff, where they like just dispose of well, actually in China at the time, at least, they kind of just disposed of of girls because they wanted guys to, because you'd marry into the family, so you'd basically lose your legacy kind of deal. And so they would keep the guys. But then in India, they would prostitute freaking like 9-year-old Indian girls, and it's like no, And so that was my plan, because I was like, I'm gonna be a soccer player, I'm gonna make millions of dollars. And so I was gonna do that, and that didn't happen. Well, so what happened was I was lost, man. I was lost in my purpose. I was lost in trying to figure out, it was this impossible task of trying to figure out why I existed, why I was here based on external things, right? And we already talked about the women, we already talked about all that. And then this was the other facet of like, what are my gifts? What am I good at? What are these, like, and why, like, and so it must be this. And so I start pursuing these things intensely, right? And I got injured a lot. My ankles were basically swollen all of high school, from sprained ankles, right? From sprained ankles to meniscus tear to herniated discs. Like, I messed myself up trying to achieve a level that I couldn't achieve in my body. Now, if I had known better, I think I was training fine. I don't think I was sleeping enough, and I don't think I was eating enough. And the eating part wasn't necessarily have anything to do with my parents. That was like a self-imposed, I don't want to say diet. I also had a weak stomach. I couldn't eat like Taco Bell. I'd throw up, and it was, I mean, good and bad, I guess. I don't know, whatever you want to say, but it was just like anything that wasn't pure fuel in my body would not make it. It would come back out. And that was just my life for a long time. I met this friend. I almost said his name, because he's like, I don't think he's ever done anything wrong. Nothing was ever bad in our relationship. Like, Yeah, he was never the bad guy kind of deal, you know. He just he helped me like open my eyes a little bit to real life, and I know that was his purpose because he saw, you know, at the time, you know, my parenting issue, my parental issues of being under a rock, intentionally, you know, not being exposed to anything, being protected, all of that, you know, which is all good in moderation, and you know, viewer discretion, not viewer discretion, discretion is advised, right? But it was that thing of like, bro, you don't know anything about anything. And he sat me down one day and he was like, bro, you're 20 years old, you're not playing in a D1 college, it's not gonna happen for you. And I was like, but I can outwork anybody. Like there was this thing in my head that I always put in my head that, and I mean, I don't know, it's kind of true still to this day, which is basically whatever my circle is, right? I could outwork them to the point where I can outperform them. Give me 4 to 6 months and I would be outperforming them. And that goes in like that's like an intelligence thing, or not even like an IQ thing, I guess, of like for me, dumb isn't not knowing things, it's refusing to learn. Because like me, I knew nothing by the time I was 20. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I did amazing in school and this and that effortlessly, whatever. But like, I didn't know anything that mattered. Not that it doesn't matter. That's a whole thing. I want to. School is important, actually. It's really important. It helps you, like, it teaches you how to think better, especially math, which I mean, I know no one makes the correlation, but reasoning and logic is like fundamental to math, and then comprehension skills and articulating yourself and stuff like that with English. Like those two classes are fundamentally important. But anyways, I didn't know anything about anything, but as soon as, you know, I got in a circle, whether it was friend group, whether it was a work group, whether it was, you know, like whatever it was, except for maybe serving. I always sucked at serving. It's because I'm not a social person. Well, I am now. I think I could get through it now. Whatever. Okay. I would just outwork them to try to understand it. And I think a lot of people, no offense to people, they kind of fake it, and they fake it to the point where people perceive that they've made it, you know, like let's say with like Google Sheets or something like Excel, you know, you do just enough, you fake it in terms of, yeah, I can do that, yeah, I can do that. And then you learn just enough to make it look like you know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? And that's how you make it. I just didn't have that confidence because I was paranoid of like, what if they ask me a question that I don't know? What if they like make me look like the fool, you know? So I would learn Excel. I would learn the shortcuts. I would learn like pivot table. I would learn everything you could possibly do. Now, like what I'm saying, well, for this specifically, like that's in the process I'm in right now of Google Sheets specifically. But that's the kind of the deal is like, I wouldn't fake it. I would just work really freaking hard to understand it like in its entirety. And now I know it and I've made it. So I would do the same thing with soccer. If I was on let's say I was on a sucky team, you know, I was already better. But let's say I'm on a medium team and they're like, some of them are better than this and that. And then I would start learning. I would like look at how they would dribble and see how they would do things. I would see their movements. I would see like the kind of plays they would do. So that would help me defense and offense. And then I would just kind of adapt and learn. And then I'd be like, this guy's unstoppable. What is he doing? You know? So in my head, I was like, bro, if they just put me on a team like that, doesn't matter how high of a gap there is, I will climb there, like by sheer like willpower. But I mean, those opportunities just don't happen, you know. it was just that funny thing. Like, I think this is a young man's dream. Like, you just getting a random call of like, I don't know, freaking Kanye calling you, or, you know, Ancelotti, which is a soccer coach, you know, just some random high end person calls you and is like, hey, I heard about you. Come over here, you know, and let me mentor you or whatever. And you're just like, yeah, that's not going to happen. You know, those people that are called like that have a huge catalog. They have a huge resume already. You know what I mean? Like, it's astounding how delusional I was. And then I'm in college now. I learned the piano. I learned the piano because I wanted to express my emotions better. I think I was trying to serenade an ex. I don't remember. Like, I don't remember why I did it. I know that I definitely tried to serenade an ex. Not even serenade. It was like, I don't know. It was this thing of like just expressing to them like we're not together anymore, and that sucks for both of us. Because I think I knew that, like, no, that's not true. Because yeah, there was a time. Oh, that was a funny story. Yeah, basically we ended up coincidentally going to the same college, even though she had other plans to go to a different. So if she ever watches, she's gonna punch me in my mouth. But but yeah, I thought it was gonna work out because the whole thing was like the distance, and then we ended up going to the same place, and it was like, hello, and but she was like, she chose then to be committed. You know what I mean? That's crazy. Yeah, but I mean, it all worked out for the best, right? It's just so funny to me, like the whole story. Women are crazy, bro. Women are crazy. Dude, they just don't make sense. Oh, I'm so sorry, but dude, that's crazy. Anyways, okay, so yeah, I did have hope in that, but yeah, not that thank God it did, because she's like she's a decent human being, but I don't know if we would have. Yeah, we're just not good for each other, you know. Anyways, okay. Where am I now? I am playing the piano. So again, fundamentals. You get really good at fundamentals. This is like this Mamba mentality, right? You get really good at fundamentals, and you become versatile, and you become very good, because then what you can do is exponential, right? So if you know your chords and you know your scales, all of them, even better, if you understand the mechanism of what makes chords and the mechanism of what makes scales, then you can literally do anything. That's when the possibilities are endless. Why is it endless? Well, because you now know how to construct every chord that ever could exist and any scale that could exist, right? If you don't really understand music, there's a pattern to like a major scale, which means if you learn the pattern to the major scale, you can start on any note, do the pattern, and you've just learned every major scale that there is, right? That goes a lot farther than learning a song here, learning a song there, learning a song here, because then you're constrained to, honestly, probably pop music, which, I mean, is the same four chords for like 90% of the songs, and that's all you're gonna know. And not even that, you don't even know why this chord makes this noise. You know what I mean? Like, don't get me started. So yeah, again, I think for me, this is like the long approach to learning, maybe, but it's, I think the deepest way to learn something is you start by the raw fundamentals, right? Sticks and stones. Like, you go back to, I'm not talking like historically, but just like to the essence of what music is, to the essence of what soccer is, right? Soccer is movement, ball control, and like vision, I guess. I don't know. It's like playing chess in real life, where things don't go the way you want it to because people are hitting you and you have to run and you get tired. And like, there's a psychological, physical aspect to this chess game that is happening. And it all doesn't
It's not like you're not 11 people, right? You're one person out of 11, and the chemistry, the people thinking the same way, like, uh, it's such a fascinating game. I know, yeah. I mean, in most sports, you have these elements, but there's just the beautiful game is what they call it. Anyways, oh my gosh, I'm not talking about that. I am talking about how I then thought I was going to be the next Kanye, pretty much. Do I have small aspirations that maybe one day? I think probably if anything, I'll not even Tyler, to be honest, because that's the thing. It's like this is my downfall with art, in terms of like being really good at something. Because this is the thing, right? To be really good at something, you eliminate everything else. You do this one thing and you do it for a really long time, and then you're going to like the statistical probability of you being really good at that is really high the longer you do one thing that you specialize in. My problem is I'm a jack of all trades. I do not specialize in anything. That's why, well, I don't want to get there yet, but that's why I'm a fantastic teacher, because I know a medium amount of kind of everything now. Wow. Isn't that crazy? No, but, so, well, I don't even mean teacher. I just mean this is me teaching, I'm talking about my life and this and that, but you're listening, and not only am I giving you like, oh, this is a fun story, I'm giving you nuggets, right? And you go home and you're like, fundamentals, drive them, anyways. Okay. So, oh my goodness. Stop, dude. Nope. We talked about that. I'm all over the place, man. Not just in my mind here, like right now, but I'm all over the place in terms of what I like to do. So sometimes I'll be working on music and I'm like, I want to paint a little bit, or, I want to, like, I get obsessed with painting, or I get obsessed with photography or cinematography or anime or whatever. Like, I won't do it, but I'll watch it a lot and be like, oh man, how does this character, that's another thing. It's like, I don't know if I really waste time. I mean, I don't know, waste time. My brain doesn't turn off. So even when I'm doing something, like I watched Last Breath yesterday, and the movie honestly was a lot better than I expected. I also thought it was going to be like a shark attack movie or like a thriller. I mean, it was definitely kind of intense in some parts. It was more of a drama and based on a true story. I didn't know that until the end. I don't know if that's a spoiler. I don't know if they like played it that way, but I don't know, whatever. But it was actually kind of a decent movie, to be honest. And so what I was thinking through the movie, these shots are amazing. And I was thinking, how did they do these shots? Because it's not like they actually went down to the bottom of the ocean and had these HD quality, things. They probably had a tank, probably had, and so I was thinking about, I was thinking of set design. I was thinking of, how are these getting these shots? Why did the director decide to have these shots contrasted with the chaos that was going up, like up there? Like I was thinking, I'm always analytical. My wife like wants to beat my head in, but I can't stop. But at the same time, I don't specialize in anything. Like I'm a decent piano player, I guess, kind of. I painted this. No, I don't think you can see this one right here. That was me. That's pretty. Yeah. Okay. I don't paint that much. And I experiment a lot, and they always fail. Like I'm trying to like, how do you blend colors? And then I make blob, and then or I'm like, how do I create texture? And then I create blob. Like it's always blob, and then every once in a while, I won't experiment as much and I get something like this. So that's kind of like, yeah, I don't really be good at anything. Well, anyways, okay, so these external factors. Oh my gosh, dude. I wanted to touch on the thread of my life that I was lost. Because that's how it felt until I was found. I was gonna start singing the hymn, to be honest. All right, but I'm not going to because I don't actually. That's all I know about the lyrics, dude. So I'm lost here. I tried soccer, hurt myself in every possible way except for having a concussion, I guess. I didn't break anything. I dislocated my thumb one time. Anyways, who cares? Oh man, playing soccer, I mean. Then let's see. Okay, boom. Move to music. Try it. I experiment with composition, chord progressions. Experiment with these things. And this is my thing. It's like people don't care for like art. Like I think the first time they've ever cared about art is with Kendrick. But even then, dude, there's this feeling of like people just followed the hype, you know, and not necessarily. I don't know, dude. There's just yeah. As a Kendrick fan, I'm gonna start spewing out the Kendrick stuff, like the Kendrick fan stuff. You know it. If you don't, just like, oh, he's this incredible artist. He does these nuanced, very like artistic things, and people kind of just celebrate him for his, you know, his pop stuff. And that's like, it makes me feel like, okay, you care for the artist, cool, but it's just like his mainstream stuff. So it's like, do you actually care about the art? I don't know. But I mean, that dude, that's just life, right? People, we're not in a golden age, and that's just it, you know, or we're not in a Renaissance period or whatever the case is. But yeah, so like my experimentation, my exploration of the psyche, of psychology, of art, of music, and all these things, it's just, I mean, I also didn't get my form right, and it's a whole thing. But through that process, I was still trying to find out in my like external life. I was trying to find this validation of why I existed, and I didn't find it there. Wait, hold up. If at any point in this you said, "Hey, I never thought about it like that," please subscribe. What are you doing, man? I'm trying to pay my bills. Okay, anyways, let's get back to the serious stuff. All right, see it. So then I go into philosophy and trying to understand life that way. And that sent me spiraling down through psychology and philosophy. I liken it to whatever abyss that Nietzsche describes. That's where I was comfortable for a while. I was just in there. I was sitting in there in absurdity. And it didn't get anywhere. Like, imagine in my head, like there's a guy I was listening to. Oh, he was talking to Ruslan, and he was like, I don't really care for, like, is it beneficial? Is it, like, does it make me happy and this and that? I only care for truth. And I have that same feeling, yet I don't understand why the truth, like there's this assumption that the truth is morbid. Why? Like the truth is despair. The truth is like nothingness. Why? Who decided that? And it's like, yeah. And so looking outward, looking inward, it didn't, like, this whole thing of like self-love and this creating meaning out of yourself, looking deeper within, there's nothing there. Like that is where chaos is. Chaos is just like deep inside of you. So I tried both, expanding both ways, expanding inward, expanding outward. Nothing answered questions. This was like the early tail of my college years. I was really good at school, so I would just go to class, pay attention, go home. I would basically recite. I wouldn't recite that. That makes me sound like I'm a genius. I wouldn't recite the, what do you call it? The lecture in my head before, but I would think about what the teacher would talk about. So, college, I mean, I think it's pretty easy. You get 2 classes a day. You get Friday off. 2 classes a day is very digestible to go back and just think about, right? Unless you're working, you want to entertain yourself, you want to have friends and, this and that. But if your sole purpose is to learn, that's like the easiest goal ever, is to get through college. Which, I mean, I don't have connections to anyone, which is, I think, honestly, probably the more important part of college, is to have to be surrounded by people that want the same thing as you and be connected to them. And, you get further along in life because of that, whatever. So what happens is I would sit in my room. I'd lay in my bed like a vampire, and I would just stare at the ceiling and just, I would think about everything. And I don't know why I slipped into this accent. I don't. So I'm going to go back into my American accent. No, just kidding. This is my normal accent. But yeah, I would just think about life. I'd think about pain. I'd think about purpose, existence. I would think, just philosophy, mumbo jumbo, and not that it's mumbo jumbo, but I mean, you just circle around the same things. It's just a circle jerk, dude. I'm kind of over it, and that didn't get me anywhere. Like it wasn't actionable. It didn't, like, it's one of those things that, like, in theory it makes sense, and then you go out to live it and it doesn't make sense. And I think there is real value in understanding that if your philosophy and your theology isn't working out in real life, it's probably wrong. Because you have to, like, the metric of what's real is what exists, I guess. I don't know if that's fleshed out enough. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but like, if, like, for example, racism doesn't make sense, because if you think all black people are blah, 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 and then you meet a black person that's not that thing, well, guess what? It's not that he's an exception. And, well, that's the thing. Truth has no exceptions. Like, the bottom line truth has no exceptions, right? You can't just, because then you start making special rules. Like, it's like English. English has so many special rules to how spelling works, how to pronounce things, and this and that. It's not like it's like, like, what do you do with that? Spanish, yeah, it has its irregular verbs or whatever, but it has its rules are 95% the case for anything. So if you figure out a word that you don't know, you can learn all the conjugations right then and there because you understand the rules. English does, I mean, yeah, there's just too many special verbs or special nouns or whatever, whatever. Yeah, whatever. But the same applies to philosophy. The same applies to theology. If there's anything that, like, bottom line truth should not have any exceptions. That is how you know something is true. Like, I mean, in the Quran, it says all men must die. Oh, all men are mortal. All men die. Something like that. This has exceptions. So that's not true, right? People come back to life. People, in their religion, in my religion, people go to heaven without dying. Bottom line truth should have no exceptions. There are nuances. We can do nuances, yeah. But nuances gets us closer to the truth. Bottom line truth. So yeah, I don't think nihilism, I was about to say, sorry, narcissism isn't the way of life. Of course it's not. Nihilism isn't true, because a nihilist, and this is the thing, people would argue, oh, do you have to live out nihilism if you believe in nihilism? And they're like, no, of course not. I don't see a world that's hypocritical. That's literally the definition of what hypocritical is, of being a hypocrite, is believing something and not living it out. So you're just lying to yourself that this thing is true. That's what that is. I'm going on a rant right now, but being a narcissist makes you an a-hole. Duh. Being a nihilist, though, you have basically two options. You either get crushed by the idea that nothing matters at all and nothing is consequential, so you just kill yourself, or you become the greatest psychopath that exists because nothing matters. And like your legacy doesn't matter because it's going to be washed away, and like this person's life has no meaning. So whatever you do to this other person's life does not matter. And so you just live like a psychopath. Those are your two options. You kill yourself or you're a psychopath. I don't see that happening often with people who are nihilists. So guess what? You're a hypocrite. You don't believe in what you believe, what you say you believe. And that's the bottom line. Like you really can't convince me of that because, again, hypocrite implies that you are living out a lie. And there's no lies in truth. So prove me wrong. Like, yeah, you can be agnostic. You can be like, nihilism is a form of philosophy. You can be atheistic and not nihilistic, but those who are nihilists, they are dumb. I'm sorry. Like that just does not make sense. You can be fascinated by nihilism. You can entertain nihilism, but you're not a nihilist. Okay. That rant is done. But God, right? This is why Ephesians 2, man. Ephesians 2, 1 through 10. Every episode you should have gone back to it and just read that. There are absolute truth and certainties that come with Christianity that have not been proven false. The core message, the gospel, okay? Jesus died for me. Absolute fact. If he died for me as the Son of God, and his goal was to forgive sins, and he was atonement, then I have been reconciled to God. Absolute fact. This goes into the fact, I'm going to make a video on this. The Avengers episode, George Janko, if that was the Avengers, you couldn't even take out Loki. You know what I'm saying? I'm actually upset with how questions were unanswered or answered poorly. The fact that there's criticism of Catholics saying, "Oh, this is what Protestants believe," and they go out and say something that Protestants don't believe, means that you misrepresent, that the Avengers misrepresented Christianity. When I was talking about how to, right? Prophets, teachers, bro. If you're an evangelist, you're not a teacher. Period. Like this is body of Christ. This is everyone's been given a gift. You're not, the toe doesn't want to be the thumb, right? The eyes don't want to be the mouth. Like there has to be this thing. We have to, as Christians, to stay in our lanes because we misrepresent things, right? There are teachers that should not be evangelists. Why? Because they're going to get mad and say, "Are you stupid?" That's not how you evangelize, right? People are gifted the patience to deal with non-believers. Some people are gifted the patience to deal with believers. Some people understand and see how the Bible ties into itself. I think about these great evangelists who have poor theology. And you think, how can the two come together? They understand the power of the gospel, and they understand the gospel, and they can relate it to every situation, or they can always bring it back to the gospel. That's fantastic. That doesn't mean you know the nuances of the spiritual world. That doesn't mean you know the nuances of the philosophical problems within the Bible, right? That doesn't mean you even know how to live wisely. You've been given a gift. Stay in the lane. This is a rough thing, but it needs to be said because it upsets me, dude. The amount of evangelists who get on YouTube and try to teach upset me. And look, if it's a money thing, then the church needs to do better in sponsoring our evangelists. I agree, sure. But it creates more confusion, and it creates more chaos, and it creates more ridiculement, and creates more criticism. And then we all look like the fool when someone like me has to say, step down. You're disrespecting like everything that God is trying to build. That's rough, dude. That's like, and this is like, it's supposed to be an internal conversation, but I can't get to you. You know what I mean? So what do we do? Oh, dude. And like, I know it's a rough thing. It's like, oh, but why can't they preach? I'm not going to go around pretending to prophesy, or I'm not going to go around trying to heal people, or I'm not going to go around, doing things that I wasn't wired to do. My life has gotten me this far. I was lost, trying to explore and explain everything in my life as I was lost. I understand my brokenness 110%. I was found. And by the grace of God, there is purpose and meaning and a harmony to creation, to God, to his authority, to all of these things. And I'm exploring that, have explored that sufficiently to explain and articulate these things. That's what makes me a teacher, right? I'm not saying every teacher has to have the same path, the same thing. Well, I would say like, Ephesians 2, 1 through 10, that's like the story of every Christian, right? But what I mean is like my personality, my perspective was geared towards, was curated, was formed to teach, to explain. And some people weren't. Some people, all the things in their lives were made to connect with people on an emotional level, or made to, I'm a good guy, I'm like, in the sense of like, I work with excellence, I'm kind, I'm all these things. That doesn't mean I'm somewhat personable. I'm not extroverted. I'm not. I don't know how to talk to people like just on a whim. That's not me. I can't do that. And there's been times in my life where I've been guilted of like, no, you need to spread the gospel. I do when I can, but I'm going to seek out for that kind of conversation sometimes. But I've also gotten myself into trouble. I've hurt people's feelings doing that because I'm like, yeah, I know all the answers. Guess why? Because I've asked the same questions to myself. And me being forgetful and me being like, whatever, I have to answer the same question over and over and over again because I forget the answers. And so I have to come up with different solutions. Like I'm never satisfied by the answers that I have, or I forget the answers that I have. And I have to remind myself like by researching. So there's things that I've researched over and over and over again because I keep feeling the hurt there. And then I have to be like, no, but God has to have something for this. Like God's people has had to answer this question already. And so you research and, this and that, and you're like, okay, that's the answer. I forgot. Yeah. And then, whatever the case is. But how's my life changed? I'm sure of myself in what I was made to do. Not necessarily in the sense of like I know I'm to teach. Whether that's over YouTube, whether that's a church, whether that's, a Bible study group, whether I don't know. And that comes as it goes. But I do know that that's what I can offer in love to people is just knowledge, straight knowledge. I'm working on wisdom. What's the difference? Living it out. Like you ever had a friend who gives good advice and doesn't follow their own advice? That's knowledge. That ain't wisdom, See how well I explained that? Now you're like, oh shoot, that's perfect. Yeah. Guess why? I'm a freaking teacher. Guess what? Oh my God. And in my element, it looks like a superpower. But this is the only element that I have a superpower in, You catch me on I don't know, anything else. I'm going to be less than normal. I'm going to be like inadequate. You know what I mean? I think people have just been like, not glorified. It's just because everyone's on YouTube trying to teach, but they're not teachers, you know? And it's like, so me, I mean, I'm not, you know, whatever. I know where I'm at and all this stuff, but like, cause I got the answers, cause I got, you know, all of this stuff, like I might make people look bad, and I might seem haughty. I might seem all this and this and that, but it's like, I have been given gifts that maybe in this time, in this era, they're being useful. I'm not always going to be this way. There might be a time, hopefully, down the line, the course of the world, we're done with teaching. Like, not in the sense of like teaching has been taught. And now it's like doing. And this is something I pray about a lot. I don't know if I do enough. Like, I teach well, sure. But like, do I disciple like I should be? Do I pray like I should be? Do I intercede? Do I do these things? No, I don't think so. But I freaking love learning about this stuff, and I'm so curious, and questions don't stop happening. And so it's like both of these things, you know what I mean? Like, maybe in this era, maybe in this element, I'm perceived as this wow guy, but that's not my entirety, and that's not everything that needs to be done. Like, America especially, like, this was a part of my narcissism and the game of like, I have become what everyone is trying to be, you know, because people just care about like intelligence and getting slammed and, you know, like getting, I don't know, like in a debate or something, like getting destroyed, you know, whatever. That was me at one point. But then I realized, bro, there's so many more qualities that honestly I think are more important, like empathy or compassion. Compassion is like one of the most important qualities I think in civilization, and it's lacking because it's not special. Like, dude. So yeah, what I'm saying is like, yeah, I got it, but I'm also not him, you know? Hey guys, thank you so much for going on this journey with me. If you like the content, please like, subscribe, follow, and remember, there is more to life, and that is good news. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.